How's it going, guys? I'm Mike Dwyer from the Bunker Recordings and BetterMixes.com, and today we're going to take a look at my top 5 plugins for vocals. So diving right into it with number 1, we have Melodyne. So if you're not familiar with Melodyne, it's a vocal tuning program, and there are a bunch of others out there, like Auto-Tune or Waves Tune, or I'm sure there's quite a few more. But of the ones that I've tried, Melodyne is by far my favorite. Once you get the hang of it, tuning vocals is super easy with it, whether you're going for a super obvious effect type of tuning or some super subtle, transparent fixes. And unlike some of the alternatives, with Melodyne, you don't have to affect everything. For instance, if we have this line here and only this one note was a little bit off, you can affect just this note without touching any of the other ones. And it gives you a lot of control to shape the sound exactly how you want it. And besides just pitch, there's also timing tools. So if somebody hits something a little bit early or late, you can make some little tweaks there. And even amplitude tools. If the singer hits one note just a little bit too loud or quiet, you can tweak that right in here while you're doing your pitch correction. And like I said, there are other pitch correction options. You should almost definitely have one of them in your arsenal, but this one just happens to be my personal favorite. Moving on to number 2 on our list, we have Vocaline. And in this case, I have their cheapest version, Vocaline Project. They do have other versions with extra features, but I haven't found myself really needing the other features enough to warrant the upgrade price. But anyway, what Vocaline does is it lines up your vocal tracks. So for instance, if we listen to this section right here, falling through the floor tonight, got a one-way So we have our lead vocal and then a pair of harmonies. And the harmonies are pretty tight, but definitely not perfect. And you can especially hear that on this word here where he says got. Tonight, they're all hitting that G at a slightly different time, and it becomes kind of distracting. So with Vocaline, all we have to do is select our lead vocal, hit capture, then move down to our first harmony, click dub, capture again, and spot. And then we'll move down to our second harmony and do the same thing. And now let's take a listen. The floor tonight, got a one-way. Much tighter. Here was the original one. Floor tonight, got a one. And after. Tonight, got a one-way. So obviously you could have edited that manually, but that can take a lot of time, especially if you have a lot of vocals stacked on top of each other. For instance, maybe you have 2 or 3 harmonies, each doubled, plus your lead vocal, plus a pair of doubles for the lead vocal. And even if they're pretty tight, they're still going to be hitting the words slightly off from each other. And especially on hard consonants, that can be really distracting when you're hearing all of those vocals hit at a slightly different time. So again, you could do all that editing manually, but Vocaline just makes it so fast and easy. So if you've got the extra cash for it and you're working with a lot of vocal tracks, I definitely recommend checking this one out. Moving on to number 3 on our list, we have Izotope RX. And RX is really a bundle, and they have 3 different versions of it. I think they have Elements, Standard, and Advanced. I personally have the Standard version. Each one of them comes with a different number of plugins in it. But the one plugin that's my personal favorite for vocals is Mouth Declick. I don't think this comes in the Elements version, but it would be worth checking, because that could save you some serious cash. But anyway, where this comes in handy is, as the name implies, when you have a lot of mouth clicks. Some singers are a lot worse about this than others. This particular singer in this song really wasn't too bad, and we could have probably gotten away without it. But with some singers, there are just so many of them, and it would take forever to edit them all manually. And leaving them in can be really distracting in some cases. And the reason I like Mouth Declick over the normal Declick plugin is in those cases where it is really bad and they're just all over the place. Sometimes I'll just select the entire audio file and render the whole thing. And it does a really good job. It'll get rid of maybe like 95% of the clicks. And it really doesn't mess with the vocal tone at all. If I did that with the standard Declick plugin, in a lot of places, the vocal would sound really weird and kind of phasey and just not right. But yeah, like I said, this singer really wasn't too bad with it, but I'll show you what it can do anyway. I think we had a click somewhere right around here. One-way ticket out of sight. So yeah, right at the end of way. Check that out one more time. One-way ticket out of... So all we have to do is highlight that and hit render. A one-way ticket out of... And it's gone. So yeah, even if you just have a handful of distracting clicks in your song, this can save you a lot of time and effort. The regular declick plugin and the denoise and even the declip also come in handy from time to time, but this is the one that's an absolute must-have for me. Moving on to number 4 on our list, we have our first actual mixing plugin. The rest of those we're really talking about editing, but now let's get into some mixing. And here we're looking at C4 from Waves. So C4 is a multiband compressor, and pretty much any multiband compressor would work for this, but C4 just happens to have this really, really great preset called Vocal. I was first turned on to this use for this plugin, and specifically that preset, when I was working with Shawn Mendes. The producer on that project told me about this, and I absolutely fell in love with it and have been using it ever since. So the concept behind using the multiband compressor on the vocal is to even out each word or syllable tonally. So if you think about a normal compressor, it's evening out the volume from word to word or syllable to syllable. This is doing the same thing for the tone of it. Because when we speak or sing, some words are going to have more or less low end than others, or more or less mid-range, or top end, or whatever. And a little bit of that is a good thing. That's just how the human voice works. But too much of it can be a little bit distracting. If you have one syllable all of a sudden with twice as much low end as all the ones around it, or one really, really nasally word, that can be distracting and a bit annoying. So let's see if we can find a good example of this in this song. Let's listen to this line here without C4.
Public suffocation met with standing ovation. Lies.
All right, so there, I noticed that the 2 lies at the end were both quite a bit more nasally than the line before it, and were also lacking in low end. So let's see what C4 does to help that.
Public suffocation met with standing ovation. Lies.
So hopefully you could hear that. To me, that sounded much smoother. C4 ultimately added a bit of low end into those notes compared to the rest of the line, and ducked down a little bit of that nasaliness. Let me just play the words lies one more time, with and without.
Lies.
So yeah, hearing it back to back like that, you can definitely hear how much more nasally it is with it off. And as an added bonus, the top 2 bands of this are basically working as de-essers. I'll still use another de-esser down the line, but this helps to control it a bit more. And finally, number 5 on my list is the Waves MV2. So this is a compressor, but it does something pretty unique. We have 3 controls here. We have an output, which does exactly what you'd expect. And this high-level section is just a standard compressor, and this would be your threshold. You don't have any control over attack, release, or ratio or anything. But other than that, it's just a standard compressor. But the real magic is in this low-level slider. So what this is an upwards compressor. So a normal compressor is a downward compressor. When something gets loud, the compressor turns it down. But this is doing the opposite. When something gets quiet, it's turning it up. So it's still a compressor because it's making the loud and quiet parts closer together. Don't mistake this for a gate or an expander. Those turn the quiet parts down more. This is turning the quiet parts up. And there are a few other compressors that have an upward compression setting, but there aren't many that I know of. And I love the simplicity of this one and the combination of the upward and downward compression. But basically, the reason I love this on vocals is compared to a traditional compressor, I'm able to get the vocals super upfront and present without them sounding squashed. To try to show you what I mean, I made a duplicate version of the track here. So on the top one is MV2, and on the bottom one is the Wave CLA 76. So I'm going to play this line first on the MV2 and then on the 1176, and just try to listen for how much more open and natural sounding the MV2 is.
Public suffocation met with standing ovation. Lies. Public suffocation met with standing ovation. Lies.
So they're both doing a great job of bringing the vocal forward and making it really in your face. But again, to me, the MV2 just sounds so much more open. I can really hear the 1176 pushing the vocal down. Let's check out just the word lies again. I think it's really obvious there. So again, first we'll do the MV2 and then the 1176.
Lies.
So hopefully you could hear that. I know it's not super obvious, and I know sometimes it can be harder to hear stuff on other people's examples and videos as compared to when you're doing it yourself. So as with any plugin, if you're kind of curious about this one, I'd encourage you to download the demo and try it for yourself and compare it to your current favorite compressor. But like I said, what I was hearing here is on the 1176 track, that word sounded really kind of pinched and constrained when compared to the MV2. But anyway, I hope you found this video helpful. And if you want to check any of these plugins out, I'll leave a link to them in the description down below. And leave a comment letting me know what some of your favorite plugins for vocals are. Also, be sure to head on over to bettermixes.com to grab a free copy of my Ultimate EQ cheat sheet.